Tuma Kamijo is just your average high school kid who's always down on his luck. He seems pretty chill about his unlucky life and has learned to roll with it. On the night of July 19th in Academy City, Tuma finds himself running from a bunch of thugs he ticked off earlier. It all kicked off when he walked into a restaurant to grab some terrible lasagna. Just as he was about to get his food, he spotted a street guy bothering a nice lady. Tuma decided to step up and confront the thug. Unfortunately for him, the thug's buddies were lurking nearby. They stormed into the restaurant and started chasing Tuma all over town. Eventually, they got tired of the chase and gave up. Tuma ended up at a bridge where he ran into the lady he tried to help. Turns out, he saved the thugs from a nasty fate because she's an esper with lightning powers. If he hadn't jumped in, she would have fried them. She then starts asking Tuma some strange questions about a railgun and some science stuff. Tuma looks totally lost, just staring at her. As a level 0 esper, he begs the level 5 esper in front of him for mercy while she gets ready to zap him with a huge lightning bolt. His pleas fall on deaf ears as she arrogantly unleashes her lightning, but surprisingly, Tuma comes out unscathed. That's when he shows off his real power. Even though he's a level 0 esper, he can negate magical powers. The lady gets super mad and hits him with a massive lightning strike that blacks out half the town. The next morning, Tuma wakes up to find the power in his apartment is out. It's sweltering in his room, and the food in his fridge has gone bad. After realizing the mess, he sighs and grabs his bedding to spread out on the balcony. There, he spots a girl in some English church outfit hanging off his balcony rail. Before he can figure out what to do, she wakes up and asks him for food. He hesitantly invites her in, grabs some of his spoiled food, and hands it to her. She digs into it and thanks him, even complimenting the sour taste. Feeling guilty for serving her rotten food, Tuma snatches it back and eats it himself. After munching down, the girl introduces herself as Index, which means an index for forbidden texts. This unique girl has memorized every page of the 103,000 grimoires in the church library in England. Tuma asks her where the grimoire is, but she tells him it's hidden from plain sight. Regular folks can't see it. She also talks about her magical powers and other stuff, but Tuma doesn't buy it and asks for proof. The girl gets up, grabs a kitchen knife, and tells him to stab her to see that she won't get hurt. Tuma flat out refuses to pick up the knife. Instead, he gets up and touches her clothes. For a few seconds, nothing happens. But eventually, Index's clothes get ripped apart, leaving her totally exposed. She covers herself in embarrassment after showing Tuma all her stuff. She fixes her clothes and gets ready to head out to her next spot. Tuma tries to follow her but trips and falls on his phone, breaking it. He asks Index if she has anywhere else to go, but she tells him she's planning to hit up the church around town to hide from her enemies. When Tuma asks about those enemies, Index just ignores him and walks away. Suddenly, he remembers he has extra lessons to attend. He rushes back inside to grab his things and head to school. Academy City is a place with over 2 million people, and 80% of them are students enrolled in various colleges. At school, Tuma gets detention for failing so badly that even his extra class teacher, who's shorter than him, gives him a failing grade. While feeling sorry for himself, he wonders what Index might be up to. A few minutes after his extra class, he heads home. The girl he fought yesterday, Misaka, comes up to him and challenges him to a rematch, but Tuma turns her down and lets her take the win. She gets mad and shoots lightning at him, but he dodges it, and it ends up hitting the cleaning robots nearby. He ignores her and keeps walking. Just then, the robots Misaka zapped go haywire and start chasing them. When he gets home, Tuma finds Index lying at his entrance. He gets closer and sees she's been seriously hurt. Another magician shows up and starts gloating over the injured Index. The magician keeps telling Tuma that his female colleague, Kanzaki, is the one who attacked Index. Tuma is desperately trying to wake Index up, but nothing works. He stands up and confronts the enemy for attacking a helpless girl. The magician tells him to step aside so he can retrieve Index's body. Tuma wants some answers, and the magician explains Index's brain power and abilities. He warns Tuma how dangerous Index's knowledge of grimoires is, and insists he's taking her body, whether Tuma likes it or not. Tuma throws a punch at the magician, who calls himself Style. Style dodges the punch and summons his magic beast, Innocentius. Tuma watches in shock as the beast appears and attacks him. Using his special ability, Tuma manages to calm Innocentius and prepares to fight back. Style tries to hit him with another fireball, but Tuma absorbs the magic. Style gets serious and starts casting spells to summon a stronger version of Innocentius. When it shows up, Tuma tries to dispel it again, but this time Innocentius holds its ground and even calls forth a holy sword to attack Tuma. He keeps trying to dispel it, but it's not working. Just then, Index wakes up in a robotic state and starts spilling important secrets to Tuma. Steel quickly interrupts her, conjures another fireball, and throws it at Tuma. He barely escapes, panting heavily, and bolts through the halls. He spots some weird talismans stuck to the walls and wonders what they mean. Innocentius catches up to him and chases him to a dead end. Tuma runs past the dead end and drops down to ground level. Innocentius shoots a flaming beam at him, but he dodges it. He thinks about calling the cops but realizes his phone is toast. He considers running for his life but quickly dismisses that idea. Style gets closer to Index, about to touch her, but the sprinklers above activate and drench him. Just then, Tuma gets back up through the elevators and confronts Steel. Style is shocked and asks about Innocentius. Tuma explains that he weakened Innocentius. It turns out the paper with ink that Steel had scattered around was meant to keep his spells active during their fight. With the sprinklers on, the water washes off some of the ink, making the runes useless. Tuma dispels what's left of Innocentius and faces Style, charging at him and knocking him out with one punch. A few hours later, the cops and fire department show up to handle the situation. Tuma takes Index to a quiet part of town and thinks about how to help his injured friend. Index wakes up and chats a bit before fainting again. Tuma asks her about the 103,000 grimoires in her head, but she tells him his brain can't handle that kind of power right now. So, he decides to take her to his extra lesson teacher's house. When he gets there, he rushes in and begs his sensei to let him in. After laying Index on the floor, she suddenly lights up and starts giving Tuma instructions on how to heal her. She tells him to leave the room so his magic dispelling doesn't interfere with the healing process. Tuma steps out and hurries outside while Kanzaki, Style's female colleague, watches him from above. Index is lying on the floor of Tuma's teacher and asks her about the time in Japan. After she tells Index the exact time, Index gets up and starts drawing a magic circle on the round table with her own blood. While doing this, she asks the teacher to lend her hand and voice to complete the ritual. The teacher suggests waiting for an ambulance, but Index insists that regular treatments won't work for her. The teacher asks how she can help, and Index requests her to grab some items from her room and place them in the center of the magic circle. The teacher brings a box of Oreos, an SD card, and some toys, setting them on the table. Index picks up some items and tells the teacher to repeat every word and action she does. If she messes up, it could mean losing her central nervous system. The teacher gets ready and waits for Index to start. Index begins chanting with a vocal chorus, and the teacher follows along, singing the same notes. Suddenly, the room starts shaking violently. The teacher panics, fearing her room will turn upside down. Luckily, the link has already been established. The table is now connected to the teacher's room. The next part of the ritual has the teacher imagine a golden angel with wings. She tries, but she imagines it wrong. The floor starts to wobble as she sinks quietly into the ground. In a last-ditch effort, the teacher tries one more time and successfully conjures the golden angel. Index stops her and attempts again for the final time. This time, the toys and some items on the table begin to melt. The golden angel appears again and sticks around longer this time. The ritual wraps up, and Index goes into hibernation again. The next day, Tuma drops by to check on the girls. This time, he finds Index wearing his teacher's pajamas, mistaking her for the teacher since they look so similar. Things get a bit tense as Index starts teasing the teacher. She asks Tuma who Index is to him, and he replies that Index is her sister. Tuma thanks her for helping keep Index safe from her enemies. Then, the teacher gets up to head to the supermarket for breakfast supplies, leaving Index and Tuma at home. While she's out, Index tells Tuma they can't let his teacher, Como, use her magic anymore. Tuma asks Index to really break down what magic is for her. She sits up and shows him a glimpse of the weight she's carrying. Then she lies back down and shares her backstory with him. She says she's from a church that uses good magic to fight off evil, called Necessarius. She goes on to explain that she was born with this crazy ability to memorize tons of info at once. While going through some grimoires, she ended up memorizing all 103,000 of them by accident. Tuma gets frustrated with her for keeping him in the dark for so long. Index tries to play the victim and starts crying, but Tuma gives her forehead a light smack and tells her not to sweat it too much, saying he's always got his right hand. Index reminds him about his extra lessons and asks if he still plans to go. Tuma acts like he doesn't care, but Index insists he needs to get to school. A few skyscrapers away, Steel and Kanzaki are spying on Index and Tuma with binoculars. They find her location and get ready to strategize against the guy protecting her, Tuma. Kanzaki talks about Tuma's magic skills and figures he must be using some kind of magic to easily cancel out other magic attacks. Steel feels bad for making things harder for Index, since she seems happy hanging out with Tuma and his teacher Como, but they know they have to do what they need to do. That night, Tuma and Index step outside for some fresh air. Index is all smiles, telling him everything Komoe taught her while he was at school. She talks about her first time in Japan, mentioning she doesn't remember much about her early moments there, and didn't get why things were the way they were. She glances at Tuma and sees he's angry. She asks if that's how he really feels, and he opens up to her. Index gets mad and bites Tuma's hand before heading back home. Tuma continues wandering the streets alone when suddenly, the lights go out and Kanzaki shows up. Tuma is left wondering where everyone disappeared to in just a minute. Kanzaki shows up and tells him she got everyone out of there using a rune. She reveals her real name, not her gaming handle, and starts blasting sonic booms at him. Tuma doesn't see it coming but somehow dodges the attacks. Kanzaki tells him she knows about his special powers in his right hand and has prepped for them. Tuma charges at her, trying to land a hit, but Kanzaki's attacks just keep pushing him back. He squints and spots some super thin wires all around her. Kanzaki warns him there's no escaping what's about to go down. The only way he can survive this fight is to give up. But Tuma, being the brave fighter he is, keeps going after her. Kanzaki pushes him down and asks why he won't just surrender. Tuma replies he can't give up because Index has become his friend in the short time they've spent together. Just because Index has a whole grimoire encyclopedia in her head doesn't mean she's any less human. He keeps trash-talking Kanzaki's actions. When she's had enough, Kanzaki drops the truth bomb. Apparently, Index was her colleague, and she never intended to hurt her back then. In fact, she'd be better off letting her friend be, but she did everything she did, along with Stale, to save their dear friend and colleague. You see, Index's ability to memorize everything is a huge strain on her brain. She can't stop soaking up info, even the stuff she doesn't need. Right now, her brain has used over 85% of its storage capacity to hold all kinds of information from the past year. To keep her head from exploding, Kanzaki and Style have to erase some memories to keep her memory usage in check. They've got 3 days to do that before the year's memory erasure deadline hits. If they don't erase her memories fast, they might lose her. Kanzaki asks Tuma to hand Index over so they can do what needs to be done, but Tuma refuses and calls them out for giving up on Index too soon. He keeps running his mouth, really getting under Kanzaki's skin. Kanzaki snaps and lets him know that erasing Index's memories isn't an easy task for her. She lunges at him and knocks him down with her sword, crying and telling him that they don't have a choice anymore. Tuma gets back up and tells her they're still dodging the truth, that Index might be able to live with 100% of her brain capacity being used. Kanzaki stands there, listening to his rambling about Index's chances of living. After his speech, Tuma faints, and Steel arrives to pick up where they left off. In another part of Academy City, Kuroko and another girl just got back from the supermarket. They notice a crowd gathering around a strange platform that crashed into a small bridge. Kuroko steps up to check it out, leaving the other girl behind. The girl sees Index in her church outfit leaving the scene but doesn't think much of it. 3 days after the attack, Tuma wakes up in Komoi's apartment to find Index next to him. He tries to figure out how long it's been since the fight. Index tells him it's been 3 days, and he's shocked to hear that. He remembers what happened and what Kanzaki said that night, wondering if there was any truth to it. Index explains that Komoi found him unconscious in the middle of the road and brought him home. She feels bad for not being able to help him and apologizes, asking if she can heal him with her magic. Tuma insists he'll be fine without it. This annoys Index a bit, but she takes it in stride. Later, Index gets up to make breakfast for him. Tuma knows it won't be good, and tries to wiggle out of eating, but Index rushes over and dumps the food on his head. Just then, they hear a knock on the door. When Tuma opens it, he finds Kanzaki and Style waiting for them. Index stands in front of Tuma and begs her friends to let him go. After hearing her pleas, Style and Kanzaki leave Komoi's place. A few hours before dark that same day, Tuma is chilling near a sleeping Index, thinking back to his earlier run-in with the magicians. Index's memory wipe was set for midnight, but she's still at Komoi's house. While watching her sleep, Kanzaki calls Tuma, and he answers. She first asks if Index is with them. After he confirms she is, Kanzaki tells him to say his goodbyes because they'll be coming for her soon. The memory wipe is happening at midnight. Tuma asks if there's any other way to handle this. Kanzaki tells him their method is the only one they know. Tuma pushes for them to try science and see if it might work. Kanzaki insists the only way to complete their mission is for him to hand her over. Tuma flat out refuses. Instead, he vows to fight them until he drops if that's what it takes. Kanzaki tells him to bring his best game because he has until midnight to surrender Index or die trying. She hangs up. Tuma stands up and tries to read some books about psychotic drugs that could wipe Index's memory. As expected, he finds nothing. He tries calling all the smart students he can think of, but since it's a school night, most are already asleep. Just when it seems hopeless, one of the students calls back. When she hears about Index's powers and the time crunch, she complains. Realizing it's already midnight, Tuma hangs up and waits for Steel and Kanzaki to show up. They arrive at the house in no time. By then, Index is already shaking from the memory overload. They push Tuma aside to check on her. Tuma begs them for a chance to try something that won't make her lose all her memories. Style gets fed up with his whining and asks if he can live with risking Index's life on trial and error. Tuma has nothing left to say and breaks down. Style starts drawing the details of the ritual on the wall and tells Tuma to say his goodbyes because the ritual will start in 10 minutes. Kanzaki talks to Steel and lets him give Tuma a little more time to say his final words to Index. They leave the room, leaving the two of them alone. When they're gone, Index wakes up and tells Tuma to escape while he still can. Tuma puts her back to sleep and thinks more clearly, figuring out something strange. How did Kanzaki and Steel know about the percentages of Index's brain being used? He quickly calls his teacher, Komoi, for more info. Komoi tells him it's physically impossible for the human brain to break down from information overload. Tuma is shocked to hear this. Komoi repeats that the human brain can't explode from too much info. This can only mean one thing. Someone's lying, either the church or Kanzaki. Tuma bets on the church. With little time left, he places his right hand on Index's forehead, hoping to negate any magical spell the church might have put on her in the past. His first try fails, so he decides to dig deeper. This time, he puts his finger in her mouth and reaches into a strange string of dark magic. This magic shocks him and turns Index into something else. Index's robotic subconscious kicks in and sees Tuma as a threat. It starts conjuring a deadly weapon to fight him off and creates lasers. Index's subconscious robot blasts magic lasers at Tuma, but he absorbs them with his right hand. Steel and Kanzaki are stunned to see Index using magic, even though she's not an Esper. Tuma spills the beans, telling them the church has been lying and stressing them out to hide their evil deeds. Index's robot cranks up the attack to wipe out Tuma and keep the church's secret safe, but Tuma powers up his right hand and keeps absorbing the attack. Steel jumps in, using some of his magic to stop the onslaught. Tuma asks if they really want to save Index's life. If they're serious, they need to team up and end this attack for good. It's time for them to stop being side characters and step into the spotlight. Kanzaki joins the fight, using the Salvare 000 spell to counter Index's magic attacks. This not only halts Index's assault, but also sends the laser beam shooting up through the roof. Index's subconscious robot stumbles for a moment, but quickly gets back on its feet to keep attacking. Style calls forth Innocentius to protect Tuma, but Index's robot just amps up its attack and obliterates Innocentius. Seizing the moment, Tuma rushes toward Index and places his right hand on her forehead, absorbing the source of the magic spell until there's nothing left to fuel it. Index stops attacking and faints. Suddenly, white feathers start falling from the ceiling. Tuma holds Index for a bit before collapsing from exhaustion. The next day, Index visits Tuma in the hospital. The doctor asks if they were involved in the attack that destroyed a satellite the night before. Index admits she doesn't really know what went down. The doctor hands her a letter from Steel and Kanzaki for Tuma. She opens it and learns she's been left in Tuma's care while the church deals with the fallout from their lies. After reading the letter, it explodes. The doctor tells Index to go see Tuma while she can and thank him for everything he's done. Index heads to the clinic and knocks on the door. Tuma lets her in and asks who she is to him. Turns out, the attacks from last night messed with Tuma's brain cells, or so we thought. Index tries to jog his memory about his life before he lost it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Just as she's about to cry, Tuma stops joking and lets her know he's just messing with her. He remembers everything, including how the church lied to her and her friends. Index asks how he still remembers his life after the doctor's diagnosis. Tuma explains he used his magic-canceling powers to negate the memory loss effects in his brain. Index doesn't buy it, but gets annoyed at him for lying in the first place. When the doctor comes to check on him, he finds Index storming out of Tuma's room. He enters and talks to Tuma, asking if he still has his heart despite losing his memories. Tuma assures him everything's fine. 2 weeks later, Style visits an underground lab to see an upside-down humanoid machine, aka the Great Superintendent, Alistair. Alistair tells him to team up with Tuma for now to keep the balance in the world, and also to help find someone they call the Deep Blood, a person with unique powers that can eliminate a certain organism threatening global peace. The next day, Index tags along with Tuma to grab some reference textbooks. After they finish, Tuma steps outside and grumbles about how pricey the textbooks are. Index asks him what they should do with the 3,600 yen left in their bank account. While Tuma ponders how to spend the leftover cash, Index wanders off and starts eyeing an ice cream sign. Tuma catches up to her and teases her about her ice cream cravings. Index gets flustered and starts talking a mile a minute. Tuma zones out, thinking about how different things might have been if he hadn't lost his memories from that incident 2 weeks ago. Index snaps him back to reality and insists he buy her ice cream. Just when he's about to decide, 2 of his goofy friends show up to mess with him as usual. They spot the quirky girl next to him and ask about her. Embarrassed, Tuma tries hard to shake them off. Index sees this and pulls out her secret weapon to make him buy her ice cream. Now Tuma has no choice but to give in. In the next scene, Tuma spends his cash to treat his 2 friends and Index to a full meal. After getting their food, he heads to their table and spots a brunette lady snoozing next to Index. He tries to wake her, but she's out cold. After some coaxing, she finally stirs and asks Tuma to lend her 100 yen since she lost her own after ordering a bunch of stuff. Tuma pulls back and says no way. The girl, who they call the Shrine Girl, turns to his friends and Index for cash, but they all refuse to give money to a stranger. They keep calling her a Shrine Girl, but she insists she's a magician. Index tries to dig deeper, but the lady annoys her. While they're chatting, the girl's bodyguards show up to pick her up. Tuma asks her if she knows who they are, and she tells him they're her cram school teachers. After she leaves, Tuma and Index head home. On the way, they stumble upon an abandoned cat that Index wants to adopt. She asks if she can take home the cat she named Sphinx, but Tuma tells her pets aren't allowed in the dorms. Index throws a fit and scares the cat away, She chases after it, leaving Tuma alone on the street. Once she's gone, Style casts a rune over the area and appears to Tuma. He gets on guard and asks what he did to Index. Steel reassures him that Index is fine, just chasing after the cat. But there's another problem to deal with. He tells Tuma about a deep blood girl locked up in Misawa Cram School. Once a top-notch school, it's now a fake cult worshipping science. He explains that she's being held by a true alchemist from Zurich, Aureolus Izzard, who's been hiding from them for 3 years. Tuma asks why the girl is so important. Style says she's the only one who can take out vampires. Tuma considers turning down Style's offer to help infiltrate, but Style gives him solid reasons not to. Once he's done, Style releases the rune and takes off. Tuma and Index arrive at the dorm at the same time. At the entrance, Tuma notices something moving in Index's clothes. He pressures her to show him what it is, but she refuses. After a lot of insistence, he discovers she actually brought the cat back home. He tries to toss the cat outside, but Index pleads to keep it. Eventually, Tuma agrees, but only if she keeps indoors. Index is over the moon and thanks him for being so nice. Tuma steps outside and sees Style putting up talismans around the building. He asks why, and Style says he's setting up Innocentius to protect Index while they're out. After finishing with the runes, Style takes Tuma to the cram school they need to infiltrate. Once they arrive, Style hands Tuma a picture of the girl they're supposed to protect. Tuma checks it out and realizes it's the same lady he saw at the diner earlier, the one who asked him for 100 yen. The two of them head into the school building and find 2 dead guards on the floor. Style and Tuma, after discovering the bodies on the school floor, are shocked to see the students completely ignoring the strange corpses around them. This can only mean they're under some kind of spell. Style explains to Tuma that the students are caught in a powerful magic spell sealed inside a core somewhere in the building. To bring the students back to their senses, they need to find and destroy that core. Style leads Tuma to the stairs and starts climbing. When Tuma asks why they didn't just take the elevator, Style tells him that since they're in enemy territory, they might not be able to use electronics. Not buying it, Tuma tries to call Index. They chat about random stuff, and after confirming his phone works, he hangs up. Steel feels a bit jealous seeing how casual Index is with Tuma, just like old times. After their little talk, they reach the cafeteria. They stop at the entrance and see the students chatting and having fun, but as soon as the students spot them, their chatter dies down. Suddenly, the students turn to them and start chanting some incantations. Steel realizes what's happening and bolts. Tuma, confused, sees little magical orbs popping up from the students' heads and runs the other way as the orbs chase him. Style decides to shove Tuma into danger to distract the enemy while he escapes. Tuma tumbles down some stairs and lands in front of a student who's chanting. The magic orbs start attacking her until she passes out. Just then, the orbs get closer, but are dispelled by Himegami, the student they were looking for. Meanwhile, Izzard lures Style to another part of the school to trap him and sends a few students to attack. Style fights back and takes them down. Just then, Izzard shows up, ready to face Style. After taking care of the magic orbs, Himegami approaches the unconscious student. She takes off her top clothing to treat the wounds from the orb attack. Elsewhere, Index is taking a bath in Tuma's bathroom, reflecting on their earlier phone call and finding it strange that Tuma was calm, since he usually gets mad at her. She gets dressed and prepares to find him. Meanwhile, Himegami pulls out a police baton to perform CPR on the student. Tuma stops her, insisting she should just leave since she's free to go. Himegami tells him she still has a mission to complete at the school, and she can't leave until it's done. She's been hunting vampires for a long time because her blood draws them in, but she's tired of it and wants to quit. Tuma asks why she's still helping Izzard if she doesn't want to kill vampires. She explains that she's helping Izzard capture a vampire sample. Tuma warns her that Izzard will make her kill the sample if they find one, but Himegami insists Izzard promise to keep her hands clean. At that moment, Izzard appears. Tuma jumps to attack him, but Izzard tells him to stop. Just as things are about to get intense, Himegami steps in to prevent any fighting. Izzard then compels Tuma to forget everything he learned and continue on his way. Index tracks Tuma's energy to the cram school building. Meanwhile, Tuma wakes up on a swing set with Style. He punches Style for using him as bait. Izzard finds Index at the building entrance and puts her to sleep. Style and Tuma rush back only to find the remnants of the 13 Holy Knights waiting for them. The Holy Knights unleash a holy magic bombardment, a spell that channels power from the church to boost Izzard's true power, Ars Magna. Once the spell is done, they spot Sphinx outside the building, meaning Index was just there moments ago and is probably captured by now. Style and Tuma rush into the cram school to find out where Izzard is. Meanwhile, Izzard has already taken Index upstairs. Style and Tuma catch him planning some kind of ritual on Index, with Himegami by his side. Style realizes Izzard's real goal is to erase Index's memories again. Apparently, he didn't know that Tuma had already proven long ago that Index's brain doesn't work that way. Style explains to Tuma that Izzard was Index's partner 3 years back. Index can't remember him because her memories were wiped. Izzard thinks thinks vampires have unlimited brain capacity, letting them remember stuff for ages and use their brains to the max when needed. Now, he wants to lure a vampire using Himegami's deep blood powers to their cram school, capture it, and turn Index into a vampire so she won't have to have her memories erased again. Even though his plans are ambitious, Style tells him they're unnecessary. Besides being a risky move, Tuma already made it clear that Index, being human, can't just die from knowing too much. Izzard is shocked and refuses to buy into Tuma's theory, thinking a powerless human can't know better. Style warns him to believe it or he'll regret it. He also mentions Tuma's imaginary breaker powers, which is a magic cancellation ability hidden in his right arm. Izzard sinks into despair and takes a seat. Just then, Index wakes up, asking Tuma for food because she's hungry. Izzard laughs at the people who mocked him and orders them to faceplant. Style and Tuma crash down to the ground. Then, Izzard tells them to kill each other. Himegami jumps in, distracting Izzard long enough for Steel to break free from the compulsion. Izzard turns to Himegami and orders her to fall down and die. Tuma quickly gets up and supports Himegami to keep her from hitting her head. Himegami's life flashes before her as she faces death. She remembers the first time she met Izzard, noticing his calm demeanor despite being a vampire attractor. Tuma uses his imaginary breaker to cancel Izzard's effect on Himegami. Now that she's okay, he sets her down and faces Izzard. Izzard pulls out another pin and compels Tuma to suffocate, get crushed, and be shocked with lightning. Tuma uses his right hand to cancel all those effects. Now that Izzard knows Tuma can repel attacks, he decides to up his game. This time, he conjures several guns and fires them all at once. Tuma gets hit by multiple bullets but still manages to survive. Steel, still on the ground, starts questioning the all-powerful Izzard, making him doubt his own power. Izzard tears Steel apart and then focuses back on Tuma. Tuma thinks about what Style said. Why does Izzard need so many tools for his plan when he could just speak what he wants into existence? This means one thing. Izzard's words of compulsion are illusions that affect victims as long as he believes they're real. So, all they need to do is make him doubt his power. Izzard shoots off Tuma's right hand and laughs at him, but Tuma gets back up, hand missing, and walks closer. Izzard, feeling scared, steps back from the monster before him. Tuma gets too close for comfort and takes Izzard down for good. The next day, Tuma gets admitted to the hospital to fix his right hand again. The doctor is shocked he's been hospitalized twice in 10 days. Style visits later and slices an apple for him. He tells Tuma that Izzard lost his memory and magic abilities after the attack. The association also shut down the cram school and freed the students from the magic spell they were under. While they're talking, Index shows up with Himegami to check on her favorite person. When they walk in, Himegami asks Tuma why he helped her earlier. Tuma says he had no reason, just felt it was the right thing to do. Himegami looks at him, pondering the real reason behind his help. On a chill night in Academy City, a lady who looks just like Misaka, the shocker girl Esper from Tuma's school, is aiming her military-grade sniper rifle at her target, Accelerator, another Esper. When the moment's right, she fires a bunch of bullets at him, but Accelerator hardens his body, and the bullets bounce right back at her. The Misaka lookalike gets hurt and is backed into a corner. The next day, Tuma is feeling down as he heads to a makeup class set up for him during summer. He pulls out his last 2,000 yen to grab a drink from a haunted vending machine near his school, but of course the machine eats his money and leaves him broke. Misaka shows up and makes a big entrance. Then she gets ready to get a drink from the machine too. Instead of using cash, she does a spinning kick and kicks the ghost out of the vending machine. Suddenly, a yellow drink pops out and she chugs it down. Tuma, already feeling pretty low, watches her and tells her how the machine stole his money. Misaka laughs and decides to help him get it back. She zaps the machine a bit and makes it spit out tons of drinks for both of them. In the next scene, Misaka hands all the drinks she got to Tuma, who's chilling on a bench outside. She picks a drink for herself and starts chatting about how Tuma beat her on the bridge the other night. Tuma, who can't remember anything from that night, starts to wonder what went down. Not wanting to admit he doesn't remember, he pretends he does. Kuroko shows up and jokingly calls Tuma Misaka's boyfriend since they hang out so much. Misaka gets mad and tries to zap Kuroko with her lightning. Kuroko dodges all her attacks and runs off. Just a moment later, the Misaka doppelganger appears. Misaka makes sure Tuma knows that the other girl is her sister before taking her away. On his way back home, Tuma, loaded with drinks, trips over a tennis ball and falls. While he's on the ground, he spots Misaka's sister and gets up. He notices some military gear in her hands and asks about it. Misaka's sister says she used to do research. She bends down to help him carry the juice cans. Tuma tries to brush her off, but she insists on helping him carry them back to his dorm. When they arrive, they bump into another student from the maid school rushing to greet him. The maid, Micah, tells Tuma she'll be crashing in his room that night because her AC is broken. They chat a bit, and Micah teases him about the sister in his room before zooming off on her robot toy. Tuma and Misaka's sister take the elevator up to his floor. Before they reach his door, they run into Index and Himegami outside with Sphinx. Tuma asks what they're doing, and they say they're trying to get some fleas off Sphinx. While Index brings out some smoke to flush out the fleas, Himegami pulls out her magic flea spray. Tuma says they can't use that stuff. So, what do? Misaka's sister steps in and uses her shock powers to zap the fleas off Sphinx. Once she's done, she drops the cans and leaves. The next day, Tuma sleeps through his makeup class again. Komoe tries to teach the 3 clueless students in front of her, but they're not paying attention. After class, on his way home, Tuma spots the real Misaka hanging out by some railing. He joins her, and they chat about the announcement blimps flying around the city during the day. After that, Misaka playfully slaps Tuma's forehead and walks off. Tuma grabs his bag and heads back to his dorm, but then he runs into Misaka's sister again and thanks her for helping him the day before. Misaka says it's no big deal and continues her experiment, which involves trying to save a stray cat from being taken to an animal shelter. Tuma carries the cat and walks her back to her dorm. While they're walking, Misaka's sister tries to come up with names for the cat but can't think of anything good. They keep walking until they reach a bookstore. Tuma tosses the cat toward Misaka's sister and heads into the store to grab some books. Misaka's sister stands there holding the cat when she suddenly feels Accelerator nearby. She gets ready to fight him. Misaka's sister bolts into an alley and finds herself cornered by Accelerator. She tries to take a shot at him with her sniper, but Accelerator just swats the bullets back at her. Misaka's sister ends up hurt and groaning in pain. Accelerator creeps closer, touching her wounds. Meanwhile, Tuma grabs his book and heads outside, only to realize Misaka's sister is missing. He picks up a stray cat and starts looking for her. He strolls into the alley and sees bullet shells scattered everywhere. Doing a bit of sleuthing, he stumbles upon a lifeless body. Tuma quickly calls for an ambulance and the cops. When they show up, they ask him to come to the alley to help investigate. He follows 2 officers, but when they get there, the body is gone. Tuma insists he really saw a dead body, but they don't buy it. He dashes off to another alley, running until he finds Misaka's sister alive and kicking. He's shocked she made it out in one piece. Misaka's sister apologizes for worrying him, and then drops some random password for an experiment. Tuma's even more confused because he has no clue what they're talking about. Suddenly, more clones of Misaka's sister start popping up around him. They all start freaking him out, endlessly apologizing for bothering him. Tuma just stands there as they rattle off the serial number of the Misaka that died. He asks who they are, and they explain they're Misaka clones made for military purposes. After their explanation, they take off, leaving the black cat in Tuma's stunned hands. He's left wondering if Misaka knew the military was cloning her. He thinks back to his earlier chat with her, and figures she must have known somehow. Meanwhile, Himegami is settling in for a night dinner with Komoe at her dorm. Just before they eat, there's a knock at the door. Himegami gets up to check it out and finds Index lying on the floor. She just ignores her and shuts the door. Index knocks again, using her Sphinx act to gain some sympathy points. Himegami lets her in, and she joins them for dinner. While that's happening, Tuma heads to Misaka's apartment to ask her about the clones. When he gets there, he calls her room, and her roommate picks up. He recognizes the robotic voice and realizes it's either Kuroko or one of her clones. The roommate tells him Misaka's not home, but invites him to wait for her. Tuma goes up to the room and sees her roommate snoozing on Misaka's bed. She tells him to sit on Misaka's bed while he waits, but he thinks that's rude and politely declines. The roommate insists it's cool since she's on Misaka's bed. Tuma freaks out and calls her a pervert. The roommate defends herself and asks who he is. Before he can answer, the dorm supervisor comes by for a roll call. To keep him from being caught, the roommate, Shirai, quickly hides Tuma under her bed. When the supervisor arrives, she asks Shirai to find Misaka and head to the cafeteria for break. Shirai steps out, leaving Tuma under the bed. He peeks around and spots a bag under there. When he opens it, he finds files about the cloning program. Turns out Misaka not only knows about it, but is also a big supporter. He rushes outside and sees the wind turbine spinning even though there's no breeze. That must mean she's close by. Not too far away, Misaka stands there, staring at the wind turbines. During dinner, Komoe talks about the scientist Schrödinger to her dinner buddies, Index and Himegami. She tries to explain the idea using a box of chocolates, saying there are people who can swap their normal reality for a mental picture of what they really want. Meanwhile, Misaka leans against the railing, lost in thought. She remembers when a group of scientists approached her as a kid, wanting her to be part of their experiment. Her mom was totally cool with letting them use her for science. Back then, everyone in her class knew she was a level 5 Esper. Most of her childhood was spent avoiding the spotlight. Tuma walks up and asks what she's up to. Misaka snaps back that she can do whatever she wants and doesn't need orders from a level 0 Esper. Once, Tuma gets serious and pulls out one of her documents, reading it to her. Misaka is shocked, wondering how he got his hands on her stuff. She tries to play it cool and asks him why he snooped around her room. Tuma apologizes and asks how she got those papers. Misaka keeps her cool and explains that she's been secretly working to take down research labs around town after finding out they were doing illegal experiments. She mentions that even though the city is under the watch of the mother satellite, she still manages to sneak around and take out their equipment. She reveals that these facilities were looking for a way to boost Accelerator's level to 6. Tuma tells her she could have asked for help instead of cloning herself. Misaka explains that her battles with Accelerator can only go on for 120 125 rounds before she really dies. This means Accelerator would finally finish her off after 125 fights. She believes if she dies in real life, Accelerator would stop trying to reach level 6 Esper. Plus, her other 10,000 clones would be saved from certain death if she goes down. Then she gets up to find Accelerator, but Tuma blocks her path, stopping her from putting herself in danger. Misaka gets super annoyed and gets ready to shove him out of the way. She sparks up her lightning powers, ready to zap him. Yet, Tuma stands there, unbothered by her power. Misaka is taken aback and warns him to take her seriously. Tuma tells her he's not going to fight her and that she can go all out if she wants. Misaka fires her first lightning bolt, but intentionally misses. She tries again, this time hitting him and knocking him out cold on the floor. But Tuma, who's absorbed the lightning, gets back up and faces her. Misaka is confused about why her biggest rival, Tuma, doesn't want to fight her. Tuma tells her he won't hurt her because of all the terrible stuff she's been through. Instead of feeling better, Misaka gets even more frustrated and tells Tuma to stop acting like she's a good person. She tries zapping him again, but he absorbs it all. Misaka asks why he's defending a villain like her. Tuma insists he doesn't see her as the villain she thinks she is. He still believes in his friend. He stands firm, telling her not to put herself in danger. Misaka powers up and gives Tuma one last warning. Still, he won't let her through. She loses it and unleashes all her electricity across the bridge. When she's done, she picks up a black stray cat to check on Tuma. He tries to stand but is too weak. While he's down, he thinks of a way to stop the scientists from carrying out their experiment without scaring them or putting Misaka in danger. Another one of Misaka's clones heads to the city's port to throw down with Accelerator again. She mutters some secret phrases that kick off the whole fight scene and waits for him to show up. Meanwhile, Komoi takes Himegami and Index to a sauna to chill out and relieve some stress. While they're getting some nice massages, she starts talking about Tuma and his powers. At one point, Himegami asks if she knows what Tuma's real powers are. Komoi explains that Tuma being a level 0 Esper means there's some part of the city's Esper ranking system that's still a mystery. Basically, Tuma's an outlier that nobody's bothered to study, like a castaway. Speaking of which, Tuma wakes up in Misaka's arms. He sees her looking pretty down and asks why she never fought back against him. Tuma grins and says he was busy figuring out how to end the experiment, and he finally has a plan. When she asks what it is, he tells her he just needs to make the scientists doubt Accelerator's strength. Misaka wants to know how he plans to do that, and he says he's going to challenge Accelerator to a duel and beat him at his own game. Once the scientists see a level 0 Esper like him take down a level 5 Esper, they'll stop thinking Accelerator is the strongest. Misaka is shocked and tries to talk him out of putting himself in danger, but Tuma just smiles, brushes her off, and stands up. He asks her where Accelerator is so he can go meet him. Meanwhile, Accelerator shows up at the city's port to fight one of Misaka's sisters, aka her clone. He starts with some boring small talk before the fight. The clone gets impatient and pushes him to start the battle. Accelerator stops chatting and charges at her. Tuma is racing to the port, hoping to catch Accelerator before the real fight kicks off. Misaka stands on the bridge, surprised at Tuma's gutsy move. She looks at the stray black cat in her arms and decides to follow him. Tuma makes it to the port and climbs over the fence. He notices sparks flying in the air and figures the fight has already begun. Accelerator takes the first half of the fight. Misaka's clone is waiting for the wind to pick up so she can use some static electricity. But when the wind doesn't show up, she uses what she has to turn oxygen in the air into ozone, hoping to suffocate Accelerator. He catches on to her tricks, closes the gap, and knocks her down. Turns out, Accelerator can control any vector. Momentum, force, all that science stuff I don't get. But he can't control Tuma's right hand. Just as he's about to take down Misaka's clone, Tuma shows up. He tells Accelerator to let her go, but Accelerator just smirks and tells him to go home while he still can. Tuma stands firm and inches closer. Misaka's clone sees him coming and wonders why he'd bother saving someone like her. Tuma tells her to be quiet and faces Accelerator. He throws out some heroic lines and takes a swing at Accelerator. Accelerator kicks the ground and unleashes a blast of compressed air that sends Tuma flying back. Then he grabs some forklift railings and uses them to attack Tuma. Tuma dodges everything and thinks of a counterattack. Accelerator gets close and touches him, but Tuma uses his right hand to block his Esper attack. This makes Accelerator furious as he wonders what just happened. He kicks a container, releasing some flammable dust, then ignites it, blowing the whole place sky high. Tuma manages to survive a deadly attack by getting to safety and regrouping. Accelerator, furious, vows to blow himself up in revenge for all the stress he's been put through. He charges at Tuma, only to get punched in the face. This only makes Accelerator angrier, and the fight continues. But Tuma stays cool and keeps landing punches. He soon realizes that Accelerator's weak spot is street fighting, so he decides to go all out and keeps hitting him. After taking a beating, Accelerator stands up and mumbles some nonsense, causing a plasma ball to form on his head. When the beam gets big enough, he aims it at Tuma's head. Tuma dodges and waits for the next strike. Just as Accelerator is about to fire again, Misaka shows up and tells him to stop. Tuma tells Misaka to back off, but she apologizes and aims her Fleming coin at Accelerator. "Stop!" Tuma yells. The plasma ball keeps getting bigger. Misaka realizes how it was created and comes up with a plan. She decides to use her clones to mess with the wind speed around the town's turbines. If they can funnel enough electrical energy to the turbines to make them spin fast, they can control the wind speed and stop Accelerator from compressing the air. The plan works, and Accelerator has to stop his plasma ball. Furious at Misaka's interference, he becomes even more determined to take them both out. Tuma gets back up and challenges Accelerator to keep fighting. Accelerator throws everything he has at Tuma. Tuma sees him coming, dodges, and lands a massive punch. Everything goes black for Accelerator as he collapses, panting from the hit. Tuma also faints after that big blow and wakes up to find himself touching one of Misaka's clones. He panics, thinking he did it himself, but the clone tells him she put his hand there. Tuma feels defeated because he was so out of it that he couldn't appreciate the moment. Misaka tells him his plan worked, and the research on Accelerator has been put on hold. However, she and her other clones might be sent to a research facility for more studies on cell segmentation and to help create a new species. Tuma asks if he'll see her again, and Misaka says yes before moving on. By morning, the doctor checks on his regular patient again. After making sure he's fine, he leaves. Later, Misaka drops by to give her hero, Tuma, a box of fancy chocolates. Tuma thanks her and mentions the clone visit from earlier. Misaka teases him a bit before leaving. Tuma tells her she should be proud of bringing so many beings to life by donating her DNA. Misaka feels guilty about the deaths of many of her clone sisters, but Tuma reassures her that they would be grateful for the life she gave them. A few hours later, Index visits Tuma and stands on top of him, biting his head to show she was worried. Meanwhile, Misaka and her clones get back to their normal lives, ready to live happily ever after. A few weeks after the showdown with Accelerator, Tuma takes a vacation in the countryside with Index. One hot afternoon, Index wakes him up while he's napping in the shade and asks him to join her. Turns out, Komoi sent Tuma out of the city until all the drama from the fights blew over. Tuma tries to say no, but Komoi insists he has no choice. When he gets home that day, he learns Index wants to tag along, even though she's technically illegal. After a lot of begging and pressure, Tuma ends up forging an ID for her and sneaks her out of Academy City. Now he's stuck at a beach resort with Index, who's a real pain. She gifts him a poisonous jellyfish, and it stings him. Later, while he's nursing his wounds in their room, the attendant pops in to let him know their visitors are arriving the next day. Tuma spends the rest of the day daydreaming about what his parents and cousins will look like since it's been a while since he last saw them. That night, while they're chilling in the bathhouse, Index asks about his parents, but Tuma tells her to hold on until tomorrow. Index throws a fit, and after their bath, they head to their room to watch some TV. As it gets dark, Tuma thinks one last time about his parents' arrival before crashing for the night. The next morning, the phone jolts Tuma awake. When he answers, the attendant tells him his parents are already there. He gets up and sees Index still snoozing. Stepping outside, he spots his dad coming toward him. When his dad sees him, he rushes over to say hi. Tuma plays it cool, pretending to be surprised, and offers to carry his dad's bag. But his dad tells him to hang tight for his mom and cousin. Soon enough, his cousin arrives and leaps at him. She's way bigger and more developed than the last time he saw her. Tuma tries to get her off him, and just then, his mom shows up. He doesn't even recognize her because she looks like a 15-year-old. He mutters some snarky comments, thinking she's just another cousin. It clicks when his dad tells him to stop talking to his mom. The 15-year-old is actually his mom. Tuma is totally blown away and starts laughing like a maniac. He screams in frustration and bolts back to his room. No matter what his dad does, he can't get him to come back. When he gets back to the resort, he finds out the attendant has been swapped for someone who looks just like Misaka's clone. What's going on? It's like someone swapping characters in Tuma's life. To top it off, the second attendant, who used to be an old guy, now looks like Still, the magician. Tuma gets the final shock of his life when Index walks down in her church clothes, looking like a teenage dude. In the next scene, Tuma wakes up on the beach after his family has tied him up a bunch of times. He still thinks he's dreaming and will wake up soon. A few seconds later, his dad shows up to tell him he's not dreaming. Finally, Index, the teenage girl, shows up and chases Tuma away. He heads back to the resort and sees the staff watching a news report about the White House in the USA. He stops to check it out and sees Komoi reporting live from the USA, with Misaka as the president. Strange and awkward stuff keeps happening to Tuma, leaving him confused. When he's had enough, he decides to get some fresh air. As he climbs some stairs to a chill spot, he finds a girl dressed weirdly and chained up. She attacks him, thinking he's the one who put her there. Luckily, Kanzaki and his buddy Tsuchimikado step in to stop her before she can hurt him. Tuma is shocked to see them at his resort. He asks for an explanation, and Kanzaki tells him he's in a world like a genjutsu from Naruto. The caster is around too, hiding until his spell is done, and he can change everything. The chained girl apologizes and introduces herself as Misha, a purist from the church in Russia. After everyone's introduced, Kanzaki tells them about the Tree of Sephiroth, which shows the ranks of angels in heaven. She explains that the messed up world is due to a powerful magician suspected to be a fallen angel. They all thought Tuma was the one behind it, but since he's clueless about everything, it must be someone else. Just then, Misha summons a water monster to attack Tuma. He blocks the attack with his Imagine Breaker, proving Misha's point that he's a true level 0 Esper. Tuma asks Tsuchimikado how he knows so much about the church and magic. Tsuchimikado says he's always been a member of the church. Tuma just didn't know. That night, Tuma can't stop thinking about his earlier meeting with the crew. He remembers when Tsuchimikado revealed he was a church agent, spying on him and reporting back. Kanzaki jumps in, saying she thinks the spellcaster is someone close to Tuma. Tuma insists that's impossible since he's only seen his parents and cousins since they got back. Nobody else. Kanzaki asks if his parents look the same as he remembers. Tuma is left speechless. Tsuchimikado joins him on the balcony to chat and shares that his real identity is a TV idol, which is his cover while they investigate this weird situation. Tuma wonders why Tsuchimikado dabbled in magic, considering he's an Esper who shouldn't mess with that stuff. Tsuchimikado explains he tried doing magic once and ended up hurting himself. Then he spills the beans about Kanzaki being a princess destined to lead her clan of worshippers soon. He also mentions that Kanzaki is currently hosting Styles' consciousness, and the spell is what makes her look like Kanzaki. While they're talking, Kanzaki rushes in, saying she can't handle all the touching anymore. She asks Tuma to take her to the bathhouse so she can clean up. Once they get there, Tuma tells her he knows her true identity. Kanzaki seems cool with it and just asks him to keep an eye on the men's bathhouse while she bathes, since she's not comfortable in the women's area. Tuma stands guard while she takes her bath. A few minutes later, Kanzaki finishes up, and Tuma's dad walks in, pulling him inside to take a bath together like guys do. Tuma tries to warn him about the danger, but his dad goes in anyway. Inside, they stumble upon Kanzaki's naked body and quickly dash back outside. They stop to catch their breath in the garden after all that running. His dad asks Tuma for some info about Kanzaki. Tuma spills what he knows, but then wonders if he's really talking to his dad or some random dude pretending to be him. His dad notices something's off and asks what's wrong. Tuma brushes it off, and his dad starts sharing personal stuff about himself and Tuma's mom. Once they're done chatting, they spot Misha hanging out alone in the garden. His dad leaves him to talk with her and heads back inside. Tuma tries to strike up a conversation with the Russian girl, but gets no reply. He offers her some gum, and she takes it. Then he asks her about Angel Fall, hoping to figure out why she thought he was behind the spell. Misha tells him what she knows and warns that they need to find the caster before the spell is complete, or they could lose the world they know forever. Tuma gets back to the resort and hears his parents about to get it on in their room upstairs. When the lights go out, he rushes in to stop them from doing that. The next morning, the fake Index is wandering the hallway, worried about Tuma since he didn't make it to his room the night before. Suddenly, Tuma's mom comes out, getting ready to head out. When asked where she's going, she says she's going back to their old house to lock the front door. Misha offers to go with her, and they leave the resort together. Tuma and his dad have another father-son spat before the scene fades to black. His dad mentions that Misha wouldn't touch Tuma's right hand while they were in the garden. Tuma meets up with his buddies in the garden to talk about the Angel Fall spell. He shares what Misha told him the night before and asks why she wouldn't touch his hand. They all figure she must be the one casting the spell and didn't want it cancelled. They need to get to his parents' house ASAP. Tuma grabs a map from his dad and hops in a taxi to get there. When they arrive at his parents' house, it's totally empty. Tuma goes inside and sees some of the weirdest souvenirs in his dad's collection. He finds a doodle he made when he was younger and keeps moving. He spots a picture of a dad and realizes his dad looks the same. Why does he look the same? Maybe he's the one casting the spell. Just then, Misha and his mom show up. When Misha sees them, she bolts. Tuma chases after her, wondering why his dad would cast such a spell. Without realizing it, he bumps into Himegami, who's driving a bus. She doesn't even know she's Himegami. He quickly asks her for a ride, and she gives him a lift in her truck. That evening, Tuma rushes back to the resort and finds Kanzaki there. He asks about his dad and tells her everything he knows. Kanzaki gets ready to go after Tuma's dad, but Tuma decides to handle it himself. He heads to the beach and finds his dad staring out at the horizon. At the beach, Tuma confronts his dad, asking why he's messing around with the occult. His dad sighs and explains that when Tuma was little, people called him a child of misfortune because he seemed to bring bad luck to everyone around. To fix that, his dad tried to use science but ended up turning to the occult. Tuma tells him he shouldn't have gotten into that stuff. He was fine with his misfortune, and his dad shouldn't have interfered. His dad looks surprised and says collecting occult souvenirs won't bring good luck to Tuma. Then Tuma asks if he knows about the Angel Fall spell, but his dad admits he has no clue. Tuma then asks about his mom, and his dad tells him he was the last one to see her. Just then, Misha shows up at the beach. Tuma asks her who she really is, but Misha pulls out a weapon and gets ready to attack him and his dad. Kanzaki arrives just in time and stops her, saying she can't take lives without the creator's permission. She explains that the person in front of them isn't really Misha, but an imposter from the creator's church. Once exposed, Misha turns day into night and reveals her wings. She raises her mace like an angel and creates a magic dome called the Sweep. Tuma gets ready to counter the fallen angel's magic, but Kanzaki warns him not to risk it since his powers don't work on angels. Suddenly, intense music starts playing, and Tuma realizes it's serious. He grabs his dad's hand and they bail, leaving Kanzaki to handle the fallen angel. After they leave, Misha summons water from the dome, hardens it, and aims it at Kanzaki. Tsuchimikado, who's nearby, knows what to do and follows Tuma. Meanwhile, Kanzaki keeps blocking Misha's attacks while she chants some spells. Back at their house, Tuma finds his mom knocked out. His dad asks what happened, but Tuma thinks he's just pretending. He insists his dad tell him where the ritual is, so they can break the magic seal before it's too late. His dad looks more confused by the second. Then Tsuchimikado shows up and explains that while his dad is a suspect, he didn't know what he was doing. Apparently, the souvenirs he collected from different countries were the tools needed for the ritual. The moment they left the house, the ritual kicked off. Now, they either have to destroy the spellcaster, Tuma's dad, or use magic to break the seal all at once. Tuma steps in to protect his dad, but Tsuchimikado knocks him out, and his dad decides to destroy the magic seal using his own magic. This is risky since an Esper isn't supposed to use magic, or they'll die. Still, he pulls out 5 jars from his pocket and throws them into each corner of the room. The floor lights up, and Tsuchimikado starts reciting spells to stop the angel fall spell. As he does, he begins to bleed, but he finishes the spell and sends a massive plasma beam at Misha, completely destroying her. Suddenly, day returns, and Kanzaki is saved. Tuma wakes up and checks on his dad. He's still alive, but Tsuchimikado isn't looking too good. In the next scene, Tuma wakes up in a hospital bed and sees Tsuchimikado alive and well. He stares at him, asking if it's real. Tsuchimikado assures him he's alive and used his auto-rebirth powers to come back. A few seconds later, Tuma's parents arrive to tell him their house was blown to bits in the explosion. For now, they have to crash at the old mansion they rented. Tuma looks at his mom and recognizes her. This is his real mother, not some 15-year-old girl. A little while later, Index shows up and complains about the awful things Tuma did to her when she was in her other form. To get back at him, Index jumps on Tuma and bites him hard. A few nights after getting out of the hospital, Tuma wakes up in his dorm room with a bloody nose. He gets out of bed and tiptoes over to Index's bed to grab some tissues. He spots Index standing on them and tries to snag one without waking her up. But of course, she wakes up and totally misreads the situation, thinking Tuma is being a creep and checking her out. Tuma tries to explain, but Index bites his head off. He checks the time and celebrates that summer vacation is finally over. The next day, Maika and the crew are back at school. She's stuck serving Misaka for a bit, and it's super boring. Misaka gets fed up, leaves maid school, and heads back to her own school. Right outside, she runs into her stalker, Unabara. He gets all up in her space and asks her out. Misaka, feeling super creeped out, tries to politely say no, but Unabara doesn't take the hint and keeps asking to tag along everywhere. Misaka starts panicking about how to shake this guy off. Luckily, Tuma and his friends stroll by. She quickly grabs Tuma and begs him to pretend to be her boyfriend to scare Unabara off. Everyone sees them holding hands and jumps to conclusions. Misaka takes Tuma to a restaurant and fills him in on her stalker situation. Turns out, Unabara is the school superintendent's kid, so she can't just brush him off. She asks Tuma to keep up the boyfriend act for a bit so Unabara will back off. Tuma teases her and tells her to wipe the mustard off her nose before he decides. Misaka awkwardly cleans her nose and hands Tuma her hot dog. Then, Tuma asks her how they should act to make it look like they're dating. Misaka throws out a few ideas, and Tuma listens. Once she's done, he pulls out his homework to work on. Misaka finishes it in no time and helps her new fake boyfriend get it done. When she's done, Misaka heads off to grab drinks for both of them. Tuma looks ahead and spots Unabara playing with a little kid and his dog. Unabara sees him and comes over to chat. They talk, and Tuma realizes Unabara's actually a decent guy who just likes someone a bit too much. Misaka notices Tuma talking to Unabara and asks for a moment alone with him. Tuma tells her to give Unabara a chance and see how it goes. Misaka thinks it over and thanks Tuma for the help. She walks off to another store to join the crowd for drinks. Unabara stays with Tuma to keep chatting. Suddenly, Tuma sees someone who looks just like Unabara rushing into the crowd to warn Misaka about some danger. He asks Unabara if he has a brother. The Unabara next to him plays it cool until it's too late. He slaps Tuma on the back and starts a fight. Tuma bolts into the alleyways and calls Index for info. She tells him about the knife the fake Unabara is holding, a black obsidian one. Tuma keeps running until he's trapped at a construction site. The fake Unabara challenges him to a fight, and Tuma punches him right in the face. Out of nowhere, the fake Unabara's face starts to crumble, revealing a nasty monster underneath. The monster tells Tuma he's after the Kamijo faction and won't stop until until he takes them down. Tuma charges at him and punches the knife with his right hand, shattering it and leaving the monster powerless. A beam falls on them, but Tuma dodges just in time. He asks the monster some questions before continuing the fight. Heavy iron beams keep crashing down around them. At one point, a laser beam falls straight onto the monster. The monster just stands there, hoping to get crushed, but Misaka's lightning splits it and traps the monster instead. Misaka's all flustered and confused, wondering if she should give Unabara a chance or just take out the whole thing. Not much screen time is given to the Unabara and Misaka love story. Plus, we still don't know what Accelerator's life is like after he got his butt kicked by Tuma. One night, Accelerator heads to a nearby convenience store to grab some groceries. After he's done, he steps back onto the streets and runs into some thugs looking to jump him. Ever since Tuma took him down a notch, these street punks think he's an easy target, but Accelerator takes them all out without breaking a sweat and keeps on moving. This time, he's feeling way more chill and reserved as he strolls through Academy City. At one point, a little girl in a cloak starts following him and tries to chat him up. Accelerator notices her and lets her talk. Turns out, she's one of Misaka's clones, and she's blabbing at lightning speed. Accelerator's not buying it, so he pulls off her cloak and reveals her bare body. Misaka shrinks down in embarrassment from the cold. Accelerator hands her back her cloak and keeps walking home. Clone 20001 sticks to him like glue, bugging him non-stop. Eventually, he's had enough and asks her why she's so obsessed with him. She says she thinks he knows more about the scientists still working on shutting down the research. Accelerator stays cool and makes it to his apartment. When he walks in, he finds his place all messed up. Misaka suggests he call the cops to figure out who trashed his room, but Accelerator just flops on the couch and crashes. He tells Misaka to get some rest because the next day might be a long one for them. The next morning, Accelerator wakes up to the chatterbox Misaka rambling about random stuff. He gets ready for the day and heads to a nearby diner for breakfast. While Misaka's picking her food, Accelerator spots a scientist named Amai Ao getting into a fancy car. He gets mad and thinks about confronting the guy, but it's too late. Amai sees him and takes off. When their food arrives, Accelerator waits and lets the talkative Misaka eat. At one point, he asks what's going on in her brain since she talks so much. Misaka assures him that with what's in her brain, there'll be plenty more annoying clones even if she gets wiped out. Accelerator tries to act all tough again and says he'll just keep taking them out one by one. But Misaka sees through his act and tells him she knows he never liked the experiments in the first place. Then she spills some secrets about Accelerator that he's never shared with anyone. He's shocked and just gives her a dirty look. Once he's had enough, he gets up to leave. Misaka's clone faints from exhaustion and lack of nutrients from the incubation tank. Accelerator rushes over and takes back to his place. Next, Accelerator pays an old scientist named Yoshikawa to borrow a manual for adjusting one of Misaka's clones. Yoshikawa tells him there's a glitch in the creation system for the Misaka clones. She says Misaka is the last of the mistakes he's supposed to eliminate, making her the leader of the Misaka army. But 7 days ago, someone uploaded a malware code that infected Misaka's personality folder. If the virus activates by midnight, all of Misaka's clones could go crazy. Accelerator asks who wrote the virus, and Yoshikawa tells him it was Amai Ao. With a score to settle with that scientist, Accelerator feels obligated to help the Misakas and take down the virus. Yoshikawa gives him a file to track down Amai Ao. Accelerator thinks back to his younger days as he rushes to save Misaka. He was born with level 5 Esper powers and was seen as a serious threat to national security. For years, the military has been trying to catch him, but they've never succeeded. Accelerator gets back to the restaurant where he left Misaka and asks the waitress about her. She tells him that a guy in a white lab coat came to take her not long ago. Accelerator quickly calls Yoshikawa to fill her in. They team up to track down Amai's location and narrow it down to a hidden spot in the city suburbs. Accelerator grins and takes off running. In the next scene, Amai is anxiously waiting for the virus to kick in. He's hooked up his workstation to Misaka's brain and is keeping an eye on her vitals while he waits. Suddenly, he glances in his side mirror and sees Accelerator approaching. Amai revs his engine, shifts into reverse, and speeds toward Accelerator. But Accelerator uses his force field to stop the car and trap Amai. Once Amai is out cold, Accelerator rushes over to Misaka's clone, who's twitching. He spots some electrodes in her head and calls Yoshikawa for info on how to stop the virus. She tells him they need a special incubation tank and medicine to isolate and destroy the virus code. She tells him to hang tight because she's on her way. Just then, Misaka starts talking really fast, causing the EKG monitor to go haywire. Yoshikawa hears the commotion and warns Accelerator that the virus is about to activate. Time is running out. If they don't act in the next 10 minutes, all of Misaka's sisters will be infected. She suggests Accelerator take this one out so they can save the others. For the first time in his life, Accelerator decides to be a hero and thinks of a way to save Misaka's sister without killing her. He figures he can swap himself for a testament machine and dive into Misaka's brain to tweak her personality file, saving her without taking her out. Yoshikawa tries to talk him down from his wild plan, but Accelerator goes on a rampage, destroying everything around him as he gets ready for the ritual. He jumps into her brain and starts rewriting the code to reset her back to how she was a few weeks ago. Things almost go sideways when Amai wakes up and points a gun at Accelerator. He pulls the trigger, and a bullet flies into Accelerator's head just seconds before he finishes the hack. Accelerator collapses, unconscious. Then, the whole virus sequence gets wiped out, and the entire system reboots. Accelerator gets up with his forehead bleeding heavily. It turns out he managed to harden his skull just before the bullet went too deep. He staggers toward Amai to finish him off, but faints mid-stride. Amai bursts into maniacal laughter, pulls out his gun, and aims it at the unconscious Accelerator. Just as he's about to fire, Yoshikawa shows up and takes Amai down instead. He hits the ground, giving his killer one last look before everything goes dark. Yoshikawa apologizes for being naive and shares a few final inspiring words with Amai before kneeling to finish him off. Amai also pulls out his gun and says a few last words before they both pull the trigger at the same time. Yoshikawa wakes up a few minutes post-surgery to find her doctor nearby. She survived the attack, thanks to him. The doctor lets her know that Accelerator kept her heart beating all the way to the hospital. Yoshikawa smiles and asks about little Misaka. The doctor tells her not only is she fine, but she's also at home with him. As for the research, the higher-ups have completely shut it down. Yoshikawa thanks the doctor and lets him go. Before drifting back to sleep, she thinks about Accelerator and smiles at his heroic act. A few days go by, and it's the first day of school for the new session. After breakfast with his roommate Index, Tuma heads off to school. Before he leaves, he promises Index he'll take her out when he gets back, which makes her happy, and she lets him go. On his way to school, Tuma bumps into the real Misaka, who's rushing to class. He stops her and asks why she's in such a hurry. Misaka turns to him and teases him about the stuff they did before school started, like pretending to be a couple to mess with the whole class. Tuma cuts her off and runs to school. In the parking lot, he runs into his substitute teacher, Komoe, who's just parked her car. He walks her to school and asks about the stack of papers she's holding. Komoe explains she's been assigned to write a white paper for a research institute, and she starts rambling about power levels and involuntary actions. Meanwhile, Tsuchimikado gets teleported to meet Alistair in a magical room. Alistair tells him about a magician named Shelley, an intruder from the English Purist Church. Instead of handling it himself, Alistair wants Tuma to deal with her. Back at school, Tuma notices Tsuchimikado is missing and asks another friend, but that one has no clue where he is. Just then, Komoe shows up and introduces the new transfer student to the class. When she calls for the students, Index walks in and shocks everyone. Tuma and Komoe quickly shoo her outside and call for the real transfer student, Himegami, to come in. Himegami steps up and introduces herself to the class. Komoe gives Index some cash to grab a taxi home. Index walks a bit but gets super hungry. She spots a vending machine and uses the money to buy some food. She gets flustered because there's no button to press. Luckily, a student named Hyuka comes along and helps her out. Index thanks her and invites her to sit with her in the cafeteria. There, Hyuka mentions she's a transfer student too. Index smiles and says she wants to be a transfer student as well. After class ends, Tuma heads down the hall for a bathroom break. He hears a familiar voice in a nearby room and barges in, only to find Index and Hyuka changing clothes, which gets him punched in the face. He settles down with Index and asks about her friend. Hyuka introduces herself and holds Sphinx close. Komoe, who's been looking for Tuma, finds him with the girls and complains about him attracting too many girls. Tuma sighs and tries to explain, but when he checks on Hyuka, he realizes she's gone. During lunch break, Index finds Hyuka hiding behind a tree. She walks over and chats with her. Index tells Hyuka about Tuma's mixed feelings and wonders if he hates her. Hyuka reassures her that Tuma still cares. Just then, Tuma shows up and asks the girls to hang out with him. He reaches into his wallet and realizes he's broke, so he heads to the ATM to withdraw some cash. Himegami catches him there and accuses him of ditching her. Tuma invites her to join them for lunch. Himegami gets embarrassed and asks about Hyuka. When she hears Hyuka's name, she mentions that Hyuka went to her high school, but no one could find or recognize her in class. Himegami did some digging and found out Hyuka is linked to a secret organization called Counterstop, which is behind the scenes in Academy City. Before leaving, Himegami warns Tuma to be careful around Hyuka. Tuma joins the others and takes them to a restaurant. Hyuka gets shy as usual but tags along. Back at school, Komoe is chatting with another teacher, Yomikawa, about this weird new student Tuma's been hanging out with. While they talk, Yomikawa gets a work call and leaves. Soon after, Himegami brings Komoe a book from the library and asks her to look into Hyuka. Elsewhere, Shirai Kuroko spots an imposter walking around the city. She clears the area and isolates the imposter, then pins her down while waiting for the authorities. But the imposter writes something on the ground and summons a golem. The golem grabs Kuroko, but Misaka arrives just in time to smash it. She joins Kuroko, who thanks her for saving her from the imposter. The imposter escapes to another part of town and summons a super golem to search for whatever she's after. After school that day, Tuma hangs out with Index and her new friend Hyuka at the underground mall. While the girls are busy checking out their stuff, Tuma gets a strange call from someone. When he answers, the person sounds half dead and is asking for help. The call cuts off, but Tuma brushes it off since they're in a mall. He walks over to the girls, who are busy eyeing swimsuits and cute outfits. After getting a little jealous of the pretty ladies walking by, they decide to try on some swimsuits. They head into a changing room, and Tuma starts looking around the mall but can't find them anywhere. He accidentally stumbles into the changing room and finds the girls half-dressed. They gasp and punch Tuma right in the head. Later, they snap some pics in the photo booth and then head home. While they're walking down the mall's hallway, Misaka shows up and tries to reach out to Tuma and the others telepathically. When that doesn't work, she just tells them out loud. Apparently, there's a terrorist in the underground mall ready to attack. So, they need to evacuate. Once the crowd clears out, one of the terrorist's golem eyes spots Tuma and the others. The fake woman, calling herself Shelly, locks down the mall and cuts the power. Tuma tells Index to take Hyuka and get out of there ASAP, but Index won't budge and insists she can fight. After a few arguments, Misaka and Kuroko join them. Misaka gets a bit sassy with Index and they bicker a bit. Somehow, Tuma finds himself in the middle of it, doing his best to dodge a punch. When they wrap that up, Tuma asks Kuroko about the situation. Kuroko says she's still got people to evacuate. Tuma tells her to get Index and Hyuka out and leave Misaka to fight with him. Things heat up again, and Kuroko teleports Index and Misaka out, leaving just Tuma and Hyuka. Tuma hears some rumbling nearby and rushes toward the sound. When he gets there, he sees some officers shooting at a golem. Shelly is behind the golem, controlling it. Tuma jumps in to help the officers. Shelly recognizes him as the Imagine Breaker and grins, thinking taking him out would be a win for her. She tells her golem to stop attacking and reveals she's from the English Purist Church. Tuma is shocked to hear she's from the same church as Index, but that doesn't stop her from attacking. Tuma blocks all the golem's hits and glances over to see Hyuka nearby. As he tries to pull her out of danger, the golem punches her in the face, crushing part of it. Hyuka wakes up and realizes her face is messed up. There's a light shining from underneath that drives her crazy, and she bolts. Shelly sends her golem after Hyuka. Meanwhile, Kuroko finds other people trapped underground, trying to dig their way out. Back with Tuma, he gets a call from Komoe. She tells him Hyuka's true identity. Apparently, Hyuka is made from a mix of bioelectricity from the city's spears combined with carbon dioxide and oxygen, turning her into a human. She's been living like a ghost, invisible to the human eye. The good thing is that Hyuka doesn't fully understand herself and has no bad intentions. Just then, Hyuka is seen in an underground sewer, healing her face. Shelly and her golem find her slacking off and get ready to take her out. Shelly makes it clear that Hyuka isn't normal and needs to be destroyed. She upgrades her golem, preparing it to face poor Hyuka. Hyuka sheds a tear, remembering her time with Index. The golem lunges at her, but Tuma shows up just in time to stop the attack. After saving Hyuka, Tuma stops and tells her to quit acting weird and just toughen up and fight. At that moment, Shelly calls forth a stronger golem and controls it to attack Tuma and Hyuka. Thinking she's finally got her target cornered, Shelly gets the shock of her life when the officers show up and chase her off. Tuma's hope gets a boost as he gears up for a second round. Shelly sends her golem after Tuma, and while it attacks, she summons the powers of the 4 archangels to help her take on Imagine Breaker. Tuma hides behind some riot shields, ready to face the monster. He talks to one of the officers there, asking them to clear a path for him when the time comes. Hyuka tries to stop Tuma from putting himself in danger, but he tells her he has to take down the monster. He takes a leap of faith and steps in front of the golem. Shelly sees the threat coming and sends her golem, Ellis, toward him, but Tuma skillfully dodges the golem and reaches Shelly. He lands a solid punch on her, sending her crashing to the ground. He gets his right hand ready to punch the golem, but Shelly wakes up and uses a magic spell to open a hole in the ground, escaping the whole fight. Now that Shelly's in the sand, Tuma steps back and senses something's off. According to Shelly, she wants war and needs a reason to start it. That's why she attacked Tuma and Hyuka, but something doesn't add up. If Hyuka was her target all along, why not just take her? Suddenly, it clicks. Shelly is probably after Index, not Hyuka. Index and Misaka are seen waiting at a subway station at street level for Tuma and Hyuka. While they wait, Index mentions some of the styles Shelly was using in her spells. She starts pacing and gets really worried about Hyuka. Misaka asks why she's not worried about Tuma, and Index replies that she knows Tuma will come back no matter what. Sphinx bolts out of Index's clothes and runs off. Misaka tells her to go after her cat while she waits. Tuma argues with the officers, telling them to lift the seal in front of them and let them pass. But the officers say they can't open the seals because it's not their call. Tuma gets to Hyuka and tells her he's thinking about jumping into the hole and taking the fight to Shelly. But Hyuka can't let that happen. She remembers the short time she spent with Index and her friend Tuma and treasures it. To keep Tuma safe, she decides to sacrifice herself by jumping into the hole and fighting Shelly instead. Hyuka hops onto the train tracks and rushes to find Shelly and the monster. She recalls her past life as an entity stuck between dimensions, one that could see every vector around her, including humans, but one that nobody could see. One day, bored out of her mind, she saw Index struggling with a vending machine and decided to help. That's when she materialized and became human. Index finds Sphinx at a construction site and picks him up. Just then, Shelly's golem rises up from a manhole and faces her. Index figures out the code behind Shelly's spell and uses that knowledge to make the golem sabotage itself. This works for a few tries until the golem snaps back and manages to throw Index off balance with a punch. Tuma follows Hyuka to the train tracks but gets stopped by Shelly. She reassures him that her golem is handling Hyuka while they talk. Before they throw down, Shelly fills Tuma in on some stuff about espers and magicians. Apparently, a few years back, the Academy City officials tried to mix the powers of espers and magicians to create a chimera with both abilities. One of the chosen ones was her friend Ellis. In the end, when the experiment flopped, the officials beat Ellis to death. Ever since, she's been looking for a way to take down the city. Now that she's found the strongest esper, Tuma, she thinks she can finally make her move and leave them vulnerable. After her speech, Shelly activates some magic seals around her and starts making the tunnel collapse. Tuma quickly rushes in and lands a punch with his right hand, which messes up Shelly's vision and throws her off balance, causing her spell to fizzle out. She gets back up and steps away from Tuma to regroup and come up with a better plan. But Tuma stops her and gives her a classic Naruto-style talk about morals. He tells her she's not the only one with problems. He's lost people too, and has been labeled as the bad luck of an entire town, so he won't let her do whatever she wants. Shelly gets super emotional and tries another magic attack. This time, Tuma sees it coming and knocks her out cold. Meanwhile, Index is stuck up top as the golem corners her. Just when it's about to take her out, Yuka shows up and punches the golem down. It gets back up and creates a vortex on its chest that sucks everything in. Hyuka and Index manage to dodge the vortex, but the golem goes in for another punch. Hyuka uses all her strength to hold it back. The golem then rolls in another punch with its other hand. Luckily, Tuma arrives just in time to stop the golem with his right hand. Misaka shows up after the golem goes down and teases Tuma like usual. Kuroko also arrives and playfully messes with her beloved Onisama. Next, Tuma takes Hyuka to the top of a crane. Once they're up there, he listens as she talks about her dear friend and the earlier attack. Hyuka gets emotional and cries her heart out to Tuma. He tells her she's definitely human since she can feel enough to cry. Just then, Index joins them on the crane and rushes in for a hug. Elsewhere, Tsuchimikado meets with Alistair to discuss a loophole in his last plan. After chatting for a bit, he figures out that Alistair is an angel who wants to create heaven on earth. He decides not to help him but warns him to be careful with Tuma, since he can be pretty unpredictable. Alistair takes the warning seriously and is left alone. Next up, Tuma and the girls have some fun with the hospital doctor. After their meeting, Index and Hyuka have some alone time. Index notices Hyuka glitching and asks about it. Hyuka explains it's just a side effect of being in their dimension too long. She says it's time for her to head back to her own dimension. She stands up, says her goodbyes, and vanishes back to her alternate reality. Life goes back to normal after all the chaos. Tsuchimikado drops out of school, Tuma returns to being the school's goofball, Misaka casually gets into it with her roomie Kuroko, and everything is chill. We get a quick glimpse of the next big player, Archbishop Laura Stewart, as she eats lunch while her bodyguard keeps a close eye on her. Index tracks down Tuma at school again and bites his head off for forgetting to put food in the fridge.